So welcome to the webinar. This is a cook-along, healthy curry and Mauritian chutney, which has been arranged for the members of the South Yorkshire Women Inspired Network. My name's Liz Leggett. I'm the Deputy for the Health and Wellbeing Lead on the Network Committee. We've also got Caroline just overseeing, hopefully that I do a good job. So quick background about the network. So the South Yorkshire Women's Network exists to inspire, empower and elevate women from all backgrounds to reach their full potential. The network offers a dedicated space where women can connect, lead and thrive, supported by mentorship, shared learning and leadership development tailored to their lived experiences. We offer regular webinars and courses, inspirational talks and events, as well as career mentoring and other offers. So we'll put some links in the chat, including our link tree, which contains the main links to including our website and a form to join the network if you're not already a member. We do have social media pages as well, so we'd like you to follow us, pop along and follow us on there. This session is being recorded, so obviously if anyone misses this or if they want to re-watch it, they can do, and it'll be available on the Women's Network webpage. So if I can ask you all to remain on mute during the session. If you've got any questions for Karen, please pop them in the chat, and there should be time for questions at the end. So I will very quickly introduce Karen, who can then introduce herself properly, and off we'll go. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So hi everybody, my name's Karen Horrocks. A little bit about me before we get started. In my day job, I work for the Department of Health and Social Care in the Yorkshire and Humber region. But my background is public health, so I've worked in public health since 2003 in the Doncaster area. Everything from teaching healthy cookery to running nutrition courses to commissioning and buying services around health and wellbeing. So I've always loved food. I've always enjoyed cooking, and I've done a few bits around cooking. I have done a cook-along before for my team, and also I've done a little bit of cooking on TV. I've had one experience of doing that. So I'm really happy to be here today to share with you a bit of cooking. So we're doing Shirley's curry, which is from the recipe book, and also complementing it with a Mauritian chutney, which is from my background and my heritage. So I'm really excited about sharing that with you today. So I'll work my way through. Hopefully you've got everything chopped and ready to go. If I'm not speaking loud enough, or if you need me to slow down, or if you need me to repeat anything, just please stick it in the chat, and Liz will interrupt me, and that is perfectly fine. So I'm going to get started. We should be done in about 40 minutes if we keep to time. So let's see how we go, and I'll just work my way through. So first thing we've got to do is whichever pan you're cooking your curry in, I've got a wok here, but you might have a different kind of pan. You need to get that onto a medium-high heat, and then we're going to start frying off our onions. And the reason we're starting with the onions first is because we need them to cook low and slow to make the curry really, really nice. So I'm going to start off by heating up my pan. I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of oil. You can choose to add more or less, but 2 tablespoons of oil I think works with this. It's enough to kind of cook it, but it's not too much. So let's go for that. So as the pan's heating up, I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons. And how things cook will depend a little bit on what pan you've got as well. I've got a non-stick pan here. If you haven't got a non-stick pan, you'll probably find things cook a little bit differently, but don't worry, it'll all work out fine in the end. So I'm giving the oil just a little bit of time to heat up. You'll notice your oil starts moving about, and that's usually a sign that it's starting to get warm. So once it's started moving about a little bit and got a bit warm, I'm going to add in the chopped onion. So this is the chopped onion. It's a finely chopped large onion. It's quite a lot there. So I'm going to add that in, and we'll start cooking it off on a medium heat. Oh, it starts sizzling, so that's good news. So, the onion, for me, is a really, really important part of cooking a curry. It forms the base, but actually, when it's finely chopped like this, as it starts to cook down, it's going to form the sauce as well, because it cooks down so much that it forms a sauce. And it says 5 minutes on the recipe. I think it might take a little bit longer for our onion to cook, but don't worry. While we're cooking the onion, we're going to do some other bits and bobs. So while this is cooking, it's a case of moving it around a little bit as you go along, and how much you need to move it will basically depend on what your heat's on and what your pan's like. So I'm keeping it cooking and moving around. Try not to burn your onion. The reason being is when things go past and they start burning, that's when it adds a bit of taste to things, and you'll find that with things like onion, garlic, and also the spices you use there. So my onion is starting to cook, and while it's starting to cook, I'm going to do rice. Now, some people will be using breads, or you might be reheating packet rice, which is absolutely fine. But I'm doing rice from scratch. I'm going to show you my really, really easy method of doing rice. So we don't start cooking the rice straight away. What we're going to do is we're going to wash it and we're going to soak it. So first thing I do, I'm going to get my rice and put it in the pan. I'm using white basmati rice. This is the quickest cooking rice I know. If you're using whole grain rice, it'll take longer to cook, but it's a little bit more forgiving. And if you're using long grain rice, so brown rice takes a little bit longer to cook, long grain rice takes a little bit longer to cook. So just bear in mind that I'm using white basmati rice. So all I'm going to do is go over to the sink. I'm going to give it a wash like 3 times. So I'll try and show you. So all I'm doing is adding water, giving it a rinse with my hand, draining it, and then doing that a couple of times. Your water won't go completely clear, but it's a good way of getting a little bit of starch out of it. Don't stir it too vigorously because you'll break the grains of rice. You want to keep them nice, but it's just a good way of just getting a bit of the starch off. And if your rice goes mushy when you cook it, one of the reasons will probably be either overcooking or starch. That's the first stage of the rice done. So just a little bit of a rinse for your rice, and then add a little bit of water to cover it. And we're going to leave it to soak. So I always soak my rice for about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. And it really, really helps because your rice starts absorbing a little bit of water and the grains go really long and separate. So it's something I always try and do. So soaking your rice is a really good thing to do while your onions are cooking down. Give you something to do. And we've definitely got quite a few more minutes to go with the onion. So what I'll do as we're doing that, and as some of you are doing your rice, I'll tell you a little bit more about the recipe itself. This is a really, really simple recipe, but when I saw this recipe in the recipe book, one thing that hit me straight away, and the reason I'm using this recipe, is how similar it is to the home style curries that I normally do. So it's basically starting with a base of onion, garlic, and ginger, adding tomatoes, adding your spices, and then kind of cooking it down till it emulsifies. So that's probably how I've been cooking curry since I started cooking at age kind of 12, 13. And my background is my father is from Mauritius. So he came to this country when he was a child. And my best memories of my grandma's cooking. So I can remember as clear as day visiting my grandma in Mauritius. I mean, in Mauritius, that would be nice, in Bridlington. And walking down the alleyway to the house, and all I could smell was Mauritian curry. And grandma's curry was quite different to this. It was a lot more watery, and she didn't have any fancy spices or ingredients. She literally used supermarket curry powder and whatever ingredients you could get. But she made the most delicious curry, and alongside the curry, she always made her chutney. And this chutney is really similar to Mexican salsa.
Added the garlic and onions.
No, I've not added the garlic and onions yet. They will go in when we've got the onion cooked down nicely. The reason for that is that garlic is really easy to burn. So I tend to add my garlic after my onions have cooked down so that we don't burn the garlic. So yeah, all you've got in there at the moment is onion and oil. So yeah, so the chutney is really similar to a Mexican salsa. It's also similar to lots of different chutneys you get around kind of India. And you probably see it looks a little bit like what you might get with your poppadoms sometimes when you go to a restaurant. But my grandma's recipe was quite simple. It was just tomatoes, some sort of lemon juice or vinegar, chilies, no coriander because you have coriander, an onion, and that was it. That's what will make it today. The onions still take a little bit of a while to cook. So what you're looking for is your onions for them to kind of break down and go soft. They'll start kind of becoming more of a lump rather than separate bits of onion. They'll probably go a little bit golden brown, but you don't want them dark brown if you can help it. I mean, you can go really dark brown if you want, but for this curry, I just want a golden brown. But the main thing is that your onions are soft, because what you don't want is your curry to be kind of chunks of onion. You want it to be kind of a nice, almost like pureed soft onion. So we're going to give it quite a few more minutes. Shout out, Liz, if there's any questions as we go along. And once we've kind of got the onion almost there, that's when we'll add the garlic and the ginger, and then we'll move on from there. So if you are cooking rice, one thing you might want to do while the onion's cooking is make sure you've got a full kettle of hot water boiled. The rice recipe I'm going to show you is like foolproof. I never make bad rice ever. And don't steam the rice. I don't do anything fancy or measure anything out. It's basically about using lots of water and keeping an eye on it. So what we'll do in a minute is we will add loads of boiling water to that rice, put some salt, bring it to boil, stir once, and then we'll leave it to cook for about 8 minutes, maybe a little bit more. And I think the main reason people rice goes mushy is because you overcook it, you don't keep an eye on it. So we're just going to do something really easy.
Karen, could you add flavouring at that point to the rice at all, or would you?
You know what's really nice? Stock cube. I think like if you like when you add the boiling water, you can cover in the stock cube if you want. You could even add other things like a couple of cardamom pods, a stick of cinnamon, some cloves or black peppercorns or a bay leaf if you wanted to add some flavour to your rice at that stage. If you want to really flavour your rice, before you add the boiling water, you can fry it off a little bit in some butter and some whole spices as well, which creates more of like a, like a pilau style rice with loads of flavour. But I often just throw a cardamom pod or a stick of cinnamon in my rice just to make it taste a little bit different. But I'm also a real proponent of adding like a veg stock cube to your rice if you want something with a little bit of extra flavour. So the onion itself is starting to soften. It's not quite there. Like I kind of feel like you should give your onion loads and loads of time. So I'm being patient with it because this really forms the base of your curry. And by the way, one thing you can do is you can do a big batch of onion and kind of fry it off like this and then put it into Tupperwares and freeze it. And then if you want to kind of skip this step, you can just have fried onion in your freezer and just get it out and defrost it. And one thing I do with the basic curry sauce is I do the same. I batch cook it. In fact, I've got some in the freezer at the moment. And then I've got it all ready with the tomatoes and everything in as well. So at any stage, really, this can be frozen to save you time.
Okay. We do have a question. Are we adding all the dry ingredients together? I have them separate at the moment.
Yeah, so the spices, yeah, we're going to throw them all in together. So I've got them separate, but yeah, we'll put them in at the same time together. That's really the only dry ingredients, yeah. And the garlic and ginger we'll put them together. Then we'll add the tomatoes after that. Then we'll add the spices, and then that's your curry sauce. So everything's in it really, apart from whatever protein you want to use. Is that question?
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant, no problem. Right, so I think the onions are starting to look there now. So you can see they've dried out a lot. They're starting to get a little bit mushy. They're starting to go a bit golden brown. So they should be about there. So I'm going to give it another minute for people to catch up in case theirs aren't there, and then we're going to add the garlic and ginger. You can see it's kind of all like holding together a bit more.
Do you have those on quite a medium or a low heat? I'm just obviously worried about them catching if it's too high.
So I've got them on 7 out of 10. So like I'd call that a medium high heat. If I was rushing around the kitchen, because I don't normally have everything chopped ready, by the way. If I was rushing around the kitchen, I'd probably have this on a couple less, just because I wouldn't be stirring it constantly. So a medium high heat for your onions, but you've got to keep stirring. So I think we're about there with the onions. They seem to have cooked down quite well. So the next thing to add is the garlic and ginger. So I've got 3 cloves of garlic, which have been kind of finely chopped or minced. And then we've got about an inch of ginger. I've got a bit more. I love ginger. I just think it's the nicest thing in the world. So all you're going to do is you're going to add them to the onions and keep stirring. That's in with the garlic. And in with the ginger. And then keep stirring. You might want to turn your heat down a little bit to just like medium, just to stop your garlic burning. It really does depend as well. If you've got a non-stick pan, you've got less chance of it burning, but better safe than sorry with burnt garlic because it does taste a bit acrid. So all I'm doing now is just stirring in the garlic and ginger. And it usually takes about a minute or 2 minutes for your garlic and ginger just to start cooking. It doesn't have to cook through completely. But you'll kind of the raw garlic and ginger smell disappears, and that's when you know the kind of started cooking down. So the next thing we're going to add to this onion, garlic, and ginger mix is the tomatoes. So you might have chopped fresh tomatoes if you've decided to go for that. Or you might have got a tin of tomatoes like me. So I've got a tin of tomatoes. I tend to use tin tomatoes for everything, especially once you get past summer. I tend to use tin tomatoes for most things because tin tomatoes are tinned when tomatoes are good. And I've got chopped tomatoes here. If you haven't got chopped tomatoes, don't worry too much. You can just kind of mush them up while they're in the pan. So it's in with your tin tomatoes. And I'll leave my tin to one side. I'll probably rinse that later. And then you can turn the heat up again a little bit. Because what you're able to do now is to cook those tomatoes down a bit. So I'm going to turn the heat up to kind of high-ish. The reason being is because the idea, what you want is for those tomatoes to let go of all the moisture, and you'll start seeing like loads of little bubbles coming up when it turns into a paste. And that's when it starts becoming a proper sauce. If you don't cook your tomatoes down properly, what you'll find is like you end up with almost like a stew. So you can see mine are bubbling away a lot, so we'll give them a little bit of time.
So we've got a question there. So it's a definite high heat on the tomatoes when the tomatoes go in. Is that right?
Yeah. So like I've got it on 8 out of 10 on my hob. So you can see it's really bubbling. If your pan's not very non-stick, or if you're a bit worried, just have it on a medium high heat. But you really want some of that water to evaporate from your tomatoes. And it'll turn into, it'll probably reduce by about a third in volume over the next 5 minutes or so. And it just depends how confident you are, really. Like I feel quite confident having it on a high heat, but you might want it on a medium heat, especially if your pan's a bit sticky.
And we have just had confirmation in the chat as well that there are some paper copies of the recipe book as well that are £10, and there's a link in the chat, an email in the chat, sorry, if anyone wants to have a hard copy of the recipe book.
Sorry, Liz, just to confirm, they're not £10. They're worth £10. They're just we're offering them for free. But if people are prepared to pay postage for it, if you can just email the Women's Act, where I've written it, might be confusing. Then we'll let you know how much it costs once we've checked, and we can post them out if anyone does want a paper version. If not, we'll put the link in for the PDF one. Thank you.
We've got a comment there from Dawn as well. I've got fresh tomatoes. So is it all right for chunky bits?
Yeah, it's fine, and they will cook down. So like fresh tomatoes will eventually become a sauce. If you keep cooking them like this and stirring them, they kind of they start breaking down into a sauce themselves. And if it's a little bit chunky, it doesn't matter. And the thing is, like, there's so many different types of curry from all over different countries in the world and things. They all end up different. Like, I like a big chunks of tomato in my curry. Like, sometimes I'll quarter a tomato and shove it in towards the end, so it doesn't break down. So yeah, it'll be absolutely fine. Making a mess. So I'm still going with the tomatoes. They're starting to reduce in volume and like come away from the sides of the pan and move around in more kind of a pace, so they're not far off. I reckon another minute or so.
We've got a really lovely and quite funny comment from Catherine, bless her. When I hit menopause, I got chunky. Oh, bless you. Oh.
Right, so my tomatoes are starting to reduce a little bit now. I think that's steamy as well. So hopefully other people are starting to reduce a little bit now. You can see that like a bit of a pace. If it hasn't reduced as much as this, don't worry. Because your curry's going to cook for another 10-15 minutes once the spices are in anyway. So yeah, don't worry about that at all. So the most important thing at this next stage is to turn your heat down to low, because you're going to add the spices now. And if you burn your spices, your curry's kind of ruined. So it's really important that you add your spices on a low heat. So I've turned mine right down to 3 out of 10. And it started, you can see it stopped bubbling a bit now. So the next thing to do is to add your spices. So I'll give people time to get them. So these are my spices here. So I always keep my most used spices in this little dabber because it's really easy to access them. So I have got cumin here. I've got coriander here. I've got chili powder. I've got 2 garam masalas because I use a lot of garam masalas, which is like the spice blend. turmeric, and I've got a few cloves and a few black peppercorns. But I'm not going to be using all them, don't panic. So all we're going to be adding for the curry today is we're going to add in a teaspoon of turmeric, half a teaspoon of chili powder. We're going to be adding coriander, which I think is a teaspoon. Yeah, a teaspoon of coriander and half a teaspoon of the garam masala. So you should have your spices out, and if you put more or less than any of those in, it's not going to make any difference. I tend to put loads more chili powder in. So teaspoon of turmeric. Just sprinkle it on top of your tomatoes because you're going to mix it in. So a teaspoon of turmeric. I've got a teaspoon of coriander. This is a tiny spoon, that's why I'm doing now. 3 of them. And then half a teaspoon of garam masala. And half a teaspoon of chili powder. And you can really use whatever you want. And if you want to add cumin or if you want to add any other spices at all, ground fennel, anything like that, you can add what you want in it. Just do it to your taste. So it's on a low heat. I've got my spices and I'm just going to mix them into my tomatoes. So as I said, like sometimes I would add these to the onions before I add them to the tomatoes, but it's a little bit more risky to do that because you run a bit more risk of burning them. But one thing that's really important is before we add any water, we need to kind of put the spices down in the tomatoes. So let's give it a minute or so. We've got to 4. On a low heat, low to medium, just kind of let the spices cook out of it. If you don't cook your spices out, you might notice when your curry is ready for eating, it's almost got like a powdery, raw spice flavour to it, and that happens as well if you add spices at the end. So it's a good idea to take the time just to cook it out.
And just say thank you to Amanda. The way forward is a husband sous chef, and I think Karen, can you attest to that?
I've got a husband Karen, but yeah, do you know, it is the way forward actually. Definitely, especially if they can do a bit of tidying up after you as well. That's really, really nice. But it's a nice thing to do. Like my favourite thing at the weekend is to stick an audiobook on and do some cooking and relax and take my time. But I think sometimes like life's so busy, isn't it, that cooking's like something you're trying to get done in between, like what you've been doing during the day and whatever you want to do at night time, or loads of other responsibilities, whether it's kids or caring or lots of other things. Whereas it's really nice to take the time to do it, isn't it? But it always helps to have a sous chef. So give that another 30 seconds, and then what we're going to do is we're going to add some water. Now, in the recipe says a cup of water. Just going to do what I normally do. Is I hate wasting the tomato out of the tomato tin, so I'm just going to do a tomato tin's worth of water. It doesn't have to be super hot because when you turn the heat up, it'll soon get warm. So the spices are cooked down. I'm going to add a tin's worth of water. You probably want to add around about the same, but it doesn't really need measuring.
So Karen, you're not obviously rinsing the tin out of the tomatoes, are you? You're adding the rest of the tomatoes.
Yeah, I want the tomatoes in.
Yeah.
Saves money, I suppose. You've got that extra bit of tomato out of it, and then I'll put that into my curry. So your curry will now be a little bit watery.
Okay. And does that class as the stock? Is
Yes.
that the stock going in as well?
Stock. That's when you add the stock. I add water, but yeah, as per the recipe, you can use stock or water. And I've used water. But if you're going to add stock, now's the time to add it. And then you should have a fairly watery sauce like that now. So I'll give people a minute or so to do that. And then I'm going to turn my heat up to kind of medium high again. But you do want to keep an eye on it because what you don't want is your curry sauce sticking to the bottom of your pan. But that should work for me. So I'm going to basically bring it to a boil and we're going to simmer it for about 10 to 15 minutes. Which is kind of perfect timing, I think.
Yeah.
So I'll give everybody just a minute more to get it on, and then we'll get the rice on if you are doing the rice. And then after that, we'll make the chutney. Okay, so your curry should be kind of coming to the boil again. Mine started bubbling. This is where it totally wrecks your kitchen. So you might want to put a lid on it if you don't want it bubbling all over your kitchen. Mine's starting to bubble a little bit there. Oh, I'll tell you what I haven't added. I haven't added any salt, and you can add salt at this stage, but sometimes it's better to add salt at the end, you know, just so that you can kind of taste it as you're going along, and you make sure you don't add too much. Because of course you can take salt out. I mean, you can't take salt out, but you can put more in. I'm turning mine down a little bit because it's splashing all over the kitchen. So there we go. So we're kind of just going to leave that to itself, kind of to cook away for about 15 minutes. So the other thing worth saying as well is, say, for example, if you're using some raw chicken or something like that and you want it to cook in the sauce, you want to be adding those chicken pieces to the curry now. I'm using quorn, which doesn't really need much cooking, so I'm just going to add it in a little while just to heat through. So it depends what you've got. If you've got cooked chicken, for example, you just add that in towards the end to heat. So next is the rice. So my rice has been soaking. All I'm going to do now is I'm just going to drain that excess bit of water off and then add my boiling water. So that's the next step as you're doing rice. You don't have to get all the excess water off, but there we go. So with rice, just add loads of water. So about 3 times as much water as rice. And then basically you can't go wrong. You don't need to worry about steaming it or anything like that. Your water will just stop your rice from overcooking. And then I stick it on a nice high heat and let's get the rice to a boil. So a little tiny bit of salt in with my rice, a 1/4 teaspoon. And then all you do is bring your rice to a boil and give it one stir. Very easy. So I don't know whether everybody else's curry sauce is coming to the boil. Like I said, you can put a lid on it if it's going mad all over the place. We're just going to let that cook through now for about 15 minutes. Ideal. So I myself a bit because it's not coming to the boil yet, but it's nearly there.
So Karen, I'm aware I'm going to ask a vegetarian this, and I do apologise, but if you are using kind of chicken or another meat, would you kind of fry it off a little bit before adding it to the sauce, or could you put it in raw as it is?
Yeah, you could do, because the process of frying, so like say for example when like your chicken skin or your beef hits oil, it kind of creates flavour. So it's a good idea to fry things off. So if you say for example if you're doing raw chicken breast, like or raw chicken pieces, I'm not sure you'd get much flavour out of frying them off beforehand. But if you're using stuff like chicken pieces with a chicken skin on, or you were using kind of something like beef or lamb, the browning you get on it before you put it in the curry just adds loads of meaty flavour. So yeah, so I would do. So if you would just say, for example, what you could do is if you were making the sauce now, you could start browning off your meat now, and then add it to the sauce and just give it a few more minutes at the end. My grandma, when she used to do hers, it was all done like a stew in a pot, so you just throw your raw chicken pieces in, but obviously that takes a lot longer to cook if you've got big chicken legs and chicken thighs and stuff like that. So yeah, so it's kind of like, main thing is just make sure your meat's cooked through anything you heat through. my rice has come to the boil now. So all I'm going to do with my rice is I'm going to give it a stir with a fork, put the lid back on, turn it down to medium low, just so it's simmering, and then that'll take about 8 minutes. So the rice is kind of going to be done in about 8 minutes. The curry is going to be another 10 for the sauce. So the next thing to do is to make Mauritian chutney. I'm going to put a lid on there. What I might do is I'll put a lid on, but I'll just have it half off as well, so that still get a bit of evaporation, it thickens up a bit. So the next thing for me to do is make my chutney. Oh, I forgot to say, if you are adding coconut milk to your curry, now's the time. So I know the recipe has coconut milk as optional, but if you are adding coconut milk while your sauce is cooking down, I'm not adding coconut milk to mine. I do love a coconut curry, but I am adding a bit of yogurt towards the end, and I'll tell you a bit about that. So the next thing for me is the Mauritian chutney. So these are my ingredients for Mauritian chutney. I've got small onion, which I'm going to finely chop. I've got a chilli, which I'm going to finely chop. 3 tomatoes, a bit of coriander and some lemon juice, and then it'll just be salt and pepper. You don't have to use a chilli. I don't know how hot this chilli is, because I got it from the market today. I don't think it'll be very hot. But you don't have to use a chilli. If you don't like chillis, don't put chilli in. Just do the tomatoes and the lemon, and if you haven't coriander as well, that isn't a big deal. So you know, it'll still taste really, really nice. So I'm going to start by chopping the bits and bobs, and I'm going to start with my onion. So I wanted to show you the way I kind of learned how to chop onions, which isn't the chef way, but it's a little bit safer, I think. So all I do with my onion, it's always kind of holding with a bit of a bridge so your fingers aren't sticking out. I just take the ends off, like that. By the way, I always have a bowl for all my bits of edge and rubbish as well, which helps keep you really tidy. And then I just do a cut down the side and peel the skin off. With red onion, you sometimes have to take an extra layer of skin off. If it looks really papery, it'll be really tough. So that's my onion skin. Then I cut it in half, and then importantly, put it flat side down so that it's not rolling about. And if you were a chef, you'd be doing it like that and like that, but I just don't think it's worth the risk. And then all I do is just slice it one way, then slice it the other way. Again, keeping your fingers and your thumb out of the way. Slice it one way, and then the other way. There you go. And then all you need to do is just nice and safely just chop through it a bit.
Is it just preference, Karen, as to how chunky you want that?
Yeah, it's just preference. I like them kind of fine-ish, but I don't go really fine. To be honest, you could use like a little mini food processor for this bit as well if you wanted. But yeah, just go as fine as you want. How I had it first of all, where it's like 1 centimetre cubes, it's fine. I'm just going a little bit finer. And that's the onions. Let's get them into the oven. The onions are done. We'll do the tomatoes next. So I've washed all these, by the way. So with the tomatoes, for this, I don't tend to use the core, but you can do. So all I would do is not use the core of the tomato, but you could literally just cut it in half. I tend to get rid of that bit. but some people might say that's a bit wasteful. And then your tomato, again, you just kind of chop it up however you want to. So just into like little dice. Don't worry about the seeds and stuff in the tomato. It can all go in.
I think at this point, Karen, I'd be looking for a gadget, I must admit.
Yeah. You just need loads of time to do it. I'm going to check my rice. Oh, my rice is done.
That seemed really easy. That's easier than putting a packet in a microwave, surely.
It is really easy, isn't it? So my rice is done, so I'm taking a second just to drain my rice in a colander and then letting it sit and steam dry. So the only way to check if it's done is taste it. And it should be still firm and definitely not mushy. There's my rice, that's going to sit and steam dry. I'll put the lid on it. One thing that's worth saying from a food safety point of view is your rice shouldn't be sat out at room temperature for ages. So whatever you do with your rice, you either want to get it cooled down quick or served up. It shouldn't be left sat around. So nearly there with tomatoes, and then the curry sauce will be pretty much on its way.
Well, I've left instructions for my husband for a Spanish bean stew. He does technically just need to heat it up, but I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm looking. My husband Stuart can cook quite well. He does amazing curry, he does amazing chili. Really good at both of those things. And a bolognese as well. So all those basics that are going to be great over winter. Okay, lots of chutney here. So next I'm going to do my chili. So your chili you can do however you want. You can remove the seeds if you want. I just have less chili rather than messing around with them. While I'm doing my chilies, I'm chopping it finely. I feel like I'm taking a bit of a risk. I don't even know how hot this is. That's not too bad. So there's my chili. I'm also just going to do my coriander. So all I do with it is I screw them up into a ball and then just drop them like that and then just give them an extra chop. It might take you a bit longer to do the chopping because you're following a recipe, so we'll give you plenty of time to get the chutney finished. chopping board moving around a little bit, a good tip is to put a tea towel under it, on advice. I've got some chopped coriander and chilies. And then final thing for this is squeeze of lemon juice, salt and pepper. And I just squeeze my lemon juice and just catch any bits in my hand. Remember, just keep checking on your curry, making sure it stops sticking. Oh, mine's looking really nice now. Hit the lid up. It's starting to cook down a little bit now. I mean, you can see how the onions are kind of becoming a bit of a sauce. So, final thing for the chutney is a little bit of salt for mine, about 4 teaspoons again. And then loads of black pepper.
Yeah, we just had a question about adding salt to the chutney.
Yeah, about, if you're making about the same amount as me, probably about 1/4 teaspoon at the most. But you can do it to your own taste. And I had loads of black pepper. That is black pepper. So once you have your salt and pepper, you can just give it a mix. With a reminder that spartans, onions, chili, lemon juice, coriander, and a bit of salt and pepper. It is really tasty. It adds like a real nice fresh lid to your final dish. And of course, it's like a salad, so it adds extra veg as well and into there as well, so you can get an extra half quarter of veg. That's that. All done and dusted. So, clean up. Curry. Oh yes, it's good. Right, so one other thing I was going to say about the Mauritian chutney is there's loads of other things you can add to that as well. So you can add diced cucumber if you wanted to. We'll add some even more veg in. You can add anything really. Pickled beetroot. If you want really radishes. Yeah, pretty much add whatever you've got chopped in the fridge. Just chop it up, shove it in. So, curry starts look really nice. Brilliant. So, we're kind of getting to the stage now where we're finishing off the curry. So, I'm going to add in my corn pieces, which are just really just need heating up.
And there's no additional sort of spice or flavouring on the corn, it just goes straight in, yeah?
Straight in. I mean, like, because it's corn, like, you could fry it off beforehand. I just don't know whether I see the point of kind of frying it off. I think it's kind of just it's a bit easier just to add it straight in. But you could do if you wanted. So yeah, it just goes in, and because all it's really there for is to kind of carry the flavour of the curry. The other thing I really like with this curry is instead of adding corn, just halved boiled eggs right at the end. They're really nice. Just make it an egg curry. You should have a bit of a curry sauce now with some bits in. I'm letting that cook for another few minutes, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my yogurt. So, really, really important with the yogurt, if you've got a low-fat yogurt, you literally just want to add it at the end, stir it in, and then serve your curry straight away, or even pop it on the top when you put it in the bowl. The reason being is a low-fat yogurt will probably split when it's added to something hot. which means that then your curry will be like a bit cottage cheesy. So if you are going to add yogurt while the curry's cooking, add yogurt that's either kind of full fat yogurt, or I'm using oat yogurt, and oat yogurt's really robust. So that's the yogurt that won't split when I add it in. So it's up to you. So if you've got low fat yogurt, add it kind of as a garnish. If you've got kind of like a 10% fat kind of yogurt, it'll be fine to go into the curry. And or oat yogurt. The oat yogurt is, I don't know, curdle. So I'm going in with my yogurt. Now, if you're not eating straight away, this is probably where you will leave the recipe and reheat it later, but I'm going to serve mine up. So you can see there, adding the yogurt has just made it nice and creamy.
We've just had a comment from Catherine saying that the chutney is lovely. I've just had a bit. Thank you very much.
Oh, have to. That's fun. So here we go. So my corn pieces should be heated through now. So you want to have a taste of your curry before you decide if it needs anything else. No, it's really, really nice. Actually, so because of my curry, it's lovely. You might want to add salt, pepper. You might want to add some garam masala at the end. Or anything really, but that takes absolutely fine. So I'm going to turn my curry off. I'm going to do a little bit of serving up. See if you can see my rice is kind of nice and separate. So I'm just going to fluff my rice like that. A nice portion. And then on my curry, I could have saved some coriander and a nice fancy sprinkle of coriander. That happened. So there's my curry. And then on the side, quite a lot of the chutney. So there you go. There's Shirley's curry with my Mauritian chutney and some rice. So I don't know if there's any other questions. I've got to try it.
Thank you. Dawn did say mine tastes delicious. Thanks, but it's a little bit paler than yours. And I think Catherine's just been showing hers to the camera. Thank you very much. So yeah, it's that was lovely. Thank you very much. Oh, Jane says mine is absolutely delish. Just saying. And Amanda says thank you so much. So yeah, so it just I suppose leaves me to say thank you so much, Karen, for opening your kitchen to us. Thanks for all the hints and tips. Hopefully this is not the last we will see of you. Now that's it. Now we've got you in. I'm just going to put a little evaluation form in the chat. If anyone could just take a couple of minutes to fill that in for us. We do have some other events coming up. So from November, we're running a series of neurodiversity in the workplace webinars. And you can browse the dates and book online on our platform. So we'll share that. And Amy in the chat is our comms lead. She's brilliant. And so if anyone wants to share pictures of their dishes, please do. And we'll probably boast about them on social media. So that's good. But yeah, I guess it just leaves me to say thank you and enjoy your dinner. So yeah, thank you, Karen. So welcome to the webinar. This is a cook along, healthy curry Mauritian chutney, which has been arranged for members of the South Yorkshire Women Inspired Network. My name's Liz Leggett. I'm the Deputy for the Health and Wellbeing Lead on the Network Committee. We've also got Caroline just overseeing, hopefully that I do a good job. So a quick background about the network. So the South Yorkshire Women's Network exists to inspire, empower and elevate women from all backgrounds to reach their full potential. The network offers a